it already destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, and yet they need help from NATO to bolster the US Navy in the Gulf in order to keep the Strait of Hormuz open to supertankers. So if you've destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, what are you scared of? And if you've won the war and you don't need any help, why are you asking for help? And if NATO is a defence organisation, why are you asking it to join you in an illegal attack? And as you just heard from Caroline Leavitt there, the reason why Iran is doing this is because America attacked it. But America attacked Iran because Iran would do this if Iran...
Donald Trump said the war was won, Iran's military capability had been crushed, and America didn't need anyone's help. But now, the message appears to have changed dramatically, with NATO suddenly being called upon. So what happened between those confident declarations and where things stand now? James O'Brien takes a closer look, and this is where things get interesting.
Well, I know that I'm right because he said so.
It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force.
It's all over. The war is over. He told us that it was. So, things that you need to know about early doors today. I think the first is that NATO is a defensive alliance. This is something that has been ridden roughshod over by various liars and traitors to the Western cause. When people like Nigel Farage talk about NATO threatening Russian interests in places like Ukraine, they are being both liars and traitors, because they are parroting Kremlin propaganda, although Nigel Farage, as far as we are aware, has never been paid for doing so, unlike his close friend and former protege Nathan Gill. But they are also completely misrepresenting what NATO is. It is a defensive alliance. So if an act of attack, if an act of offence is taken against a NATO member, then it triggers the article that prompts all NATO members to join in the response. The United States of America, the only NATO member, I think in recent memory, if not ever, to have triggered, I think, Article 5, and therefore we sent many, many troops to Afghanistan, of course, including the hundreds that died from the United Kingdom, the ones that Donald Trump insulted not that long ago. I think it was in January of this year, but I could be wrong, actually. Let us refresh our memories about what Donald Trump said, both about NATO and about dead British servicemen and women, as long ago as earlier this year.
I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there. But will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
Do you know, how many times have I played that to you recently? I played it at the time a few times, and I've played it to you subsequently. And I mean, I'm almost reassured by the fact that my fury at listening to that hideous human being malign the memories of our war dead in that way is absolutely undimmed. You worry when you do this for a living sometimes that your sensitivities will ossify, that you'll grow a sort of suit of psychological armour that inures you to the horrors of what's happening in front of you. But say what you like about Donald Trump, he manages to cause profound and hideous offence, even on the 10th, the 20th, the 30th time of hearing. That I'm going to play it to you again because it is absolutely intrinsic to what is happening now and the conversation that we are about to have today.
I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
Ah, man, they stayed a little back off the front lines. 457 some confusion over that figure on this programme because of the 457 dead, 405 were due to hostile action, 52 to non-combat injuries, illness or accidents, which means they may not have happened in the actual theatre of war, and that's why some people go with the figure 454, but this is relatively moot. It boils my blood every time I hear it because, of course, we are turning our attention back to Donald Trump and NATO today because he is insisting or demanding or threatening that NATO help him police the Strait of Hormuz. This despite the fact that he was claiming last week, literally claiming last week, and we can only find this on his social media posts. We haven't managed to find audio of this. I don't think it exists. Claiming last week that not only had the victory been achieved, but it was so complete that they wouldn't need any help from the United Kingdom, even if the United Kingdom's help was forthcoming. This was when he insulted Keir Starmer, our democratically elected Prime Minister, by Donald Trump comparing someone unfavourably, a draft dodger, multiple draft dodger, comparing somebody unfavourably to Winston Churchill. You look, and if it wasn't for all the cheerleaders in this country who are so far up Donald Trump's backside that you can only see their toes, then I wouldn't obsess about it. But that's part of the problem that we have. Find me a Donald Trump supporter who didn't also support Brexit, and I'll find you an anomaly. But I mention Brexit only because it highlights how hard these people, these clowns, these idiots find it to climb down from a position that they had previously adopted, despite all the evidence amassing that they have been hideously and horribly wrong again. And here we are. What did I say to you 2 weeks ago, or possibly 1 week ago? I said to you that Donald Trump will claim victory even when no victory has been achieved. What we don't know is what happens next when events conspire to create an impossibility for that claim to sustain. I'm not exaggerating. He has claimed complete victory. He has claimed a generational success, not just this time round, but last June as well. And he has claimed that he doesn't need any help from anybody. He has insulted NATO. He has insulted the United Kingdom. He has insulted Keir Starmer. And now he is insisting, demanding, threatening allies, previous allies that he has successfully alienated, with demands that they join him in policing the Strait of Hormuz without even really knowing what that means. It's also feasible, and again, I can't quite believe that I am required to say this out loud, it's also feasible that they didn't know what they were doing when they started this war, or that they didn't know where the Strait of Hormuz was or what significance it held in the Middle East. You create a vacuum, anything can move into the available space. And remember, it's only a fortnight since they were queuing up to attack Keir Starmer for not joining in. Absolutely extraordinary. Here's the US Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, speaking with NBC over the weekend, just on that question of how on earth this could have happened. And you could be forgiven here for detecting the ghost of Dominic Raab.
Very quickly, Mr. Secretary, there's a big debate over whether you all were prepared for what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. If you were prepared, why is the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed right now?
Because it's right near the Iranian shoreline. The world is abundantly supplied with oil and energy. We knew there would be a short-term disruption in energy flows. And to hear Chuck Schumer say that we didn't, it's just so he knows how foolish that is. And to say stuff to try to undermine the United States in the midst of a world-changing conflict just boggles my mind. But this mission was carefully planned out. It's been superbly executed. On the other side, we'll be in a much better place. The greatest driver of terrorism in the world, the greatest threat to global energy supplies will be defanged. Yes, we have disruption to get there, but we're going to be in a much, much better place in the not too distant future.
Of course we are. We just didn't realise that the Strait of Hormuz was just off the Iranian coast. It reminds me of Dominic Raab only realising how much trade there was between Dover and Calais after he had become Secretary of State for Brexit. It's another bit as well. Well, there's two bits that are relevant to what you just heard that clown say. The first is that they are threatening to attack media organisations for reporting the facts. So you pick up on that word, undermining the American interests. So if America do something and it's a disaster and you report it accurately, you are undermining the American war effort. This is Kremlin-esque. Make no mistake, this is the kind of totalitarian attempts to control media and government institutions that Viktor Orban has introduced in Hungary, that Vladimir Putin has presided over in Russia, and now you have Donald Trump and his key cronies essentially threatening the media for correctly reporting the facts if the facts demonstrate that they are a bunch of idiots. I think it's worth perhaps listening to that again on the question of how they've ended up in such an almighty mess, but not yet, because... Well, I think by the standards of idiocy and double talking, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary on Fox News this weekend, probably, and it's a crowded field, but she probably takes the cake. Listen to this.
Americans are obviously seeing a temporary increase in gas prices as Iran is trying to impede movement there in the Strait of Hormuz. We're now utilizing our strategic petroleum reserve. This is what it is supposed to be used for, right? This is the time whenever a president taps it, not as they're going into an election like we've seen in the past, but what is your message to people out there in the country right now who might be concerned to see this blip and this increase in gas prices?
We understand your concerns. We hear you, and we are taking them into account, and we have a plan to address them. And this is a temporary, short-term disruption in global oil prices that the president is ultimately going to rectify by wiping out the rogue Iranian terrorist regime. And the fact that the terrorists are holding the global oil industry hostage by threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and traffic through the strait just underscores the need for President Trump to launch this operation in the first place. We cannot live in a world where we have radical Islamic terrorists threatening to hold the world's oil market and global economy hostage like this. So the Trump administration in the short term to address the rise in oil prices has rolled out a plethora of solutions to address this issue, providing political risk insurance to oil vessels and tankers moving through the strait. The president and commander-in-chief has said that he's willing to use the U.S. Navy to escort ships if and when necessary, when the military deems appropriate to do so. We've waived some sanctions for sanctioned oil that's already at sea to kind of stabilize the prices. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which this president takes very seriously and is doing responsibly, unlike the last administration who abused the SPR for political reasons to try to artificially lower gas prices ahead of an election. That was despicable. This president takes it very seriously. We will refill the SPR.
And of course, people still buy this. People still swallow this. Lewis Goodall had a guest on his show yesterday that you've sent me clips of. I wasn't listening live because I had... I was busy, but the way in which people have to turn themselves into, I don't know quite what the correct word would be, but turn themselves into some very, very ugly things to pretend that this isn't all a disaster when the evidence is there on tape from his own words. He already destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, and yet they need help from NATO to bolster the US Navy in the Gulf in order to keep the Strait of Hormuz open to supertankers. So if you've destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, what are you scared of? And if you've won the war and you don't need any help, why are you asking for help? And if NATO is a defence organisation, why are you asking it to join you in an illegal attack? And as you just heard from Caroline Leavitt there, the reason why Iran is doing this is because America attacked it. But America attacked Iran because Iran would do this if Iran was attacked. I've just run that by you once more because the logic is sometimes a little bit hard to unpick, but your ears are not deceiving you. You just heard one of Donald Trump's key cronies argue that the reason why Iran is hindering passage through the Strait of Hormuz for American vessels and American allies is because the United States of America attacked Iran. And the United States of America attacked Iran because if Iran was attacked, they would hinder the passage of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Do you want to have a go at unpicking that and sounding a little less ridiculous or dangerous than that person? So you attacked Iran, why? Oh, but because we attacked them, because if we attack them, they will hinder the Strait of Hormuz. But I just heard your Energy Secretary display ignorance of where the Strait of Hormuz was. It sounded like he'd been taken by surprise by geography. He'd been taken by surprise by what is on every map that has ever been printed. Yes, well, the reason why we had to attack them was because of what they would do if we attacked them. Oh, I see. And what have they done now? They've done the thing that we thought they would do if we attacked them, except we didn't actually see it coming. Look, I work for Donald Trump. There'll be another guy along in a minute who'll say the exact opposite of what I've said, and then we'll just find out who's in favour with the Mango Mussolini this morning. Because today it could be me, claiming that we know exactly what we're doing, and we did it because we knew what they would do, and we had to do it because of what they would do, which they've now done, and we can't deal with it on our own, so we need lots of help to undo the thing that we've done because we knew what they would do if we did the thing that we did. And then tomorrow someone else will be along to say, oh, who knew? The Strait of Hormuz, eh? Who saw that coming? Near Iran, you say? Oh, well, I mean, you can't blame us for not knowing that. We might be the most powerful military in the history of humanity, but we don't know how to read a map, lads. Come on, give us a break. We got rid of all the map readers during Elon Musk's Doge cuts. We don't need map readers. Maps are woke. Maps are woke. Everybody knows maps are woke. We don't need maps. We just need NATO, except we don't need NATO because he said that last week, and then this week we really need NATO, and next week NATO, NOTO, who even knows-o? And that's where we are. And you know what the question is? What should Keir Starmer do? 0345 606 0973. Should he get involved now? Should he accept this demand, this blackmail from Donald Trump, who was previously insulted every British service member of the British armed forces who died in Afghanistan? Well, man alive, I haven't set the phoning up yet. I'll do that after this. But the question essentially hinges on one crucial point. One crucial point, okay? And it's this. Sometimes these questions are answered because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, because of the fact that Donald Trump is Donald Trump. So why did Keir Starmer not get involved the first time? Because Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And there was clearly no plan. There was clearly no exit route. There was clearly no established political objective. There was clearly no idea of how it was going to end. And there was almost certainly no legal rationale for doing it. And then the story changes because Iran retaliates. So Keir Starmer has to answer a different question, which is, should the UK get involved despite the fact that Donald Trump is Donald Trump? First question answered because Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Second question answered despite the fact that Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And now, should NATO get involved or should the UK get involved in keeping the Strait of Hormuz open to supertankers? In other words, should the UK come to the rescue of the United States despite the fact that Donald Trump is Donald Trump?
And that really sums up what unfolded here. James O'Brien's central criticism is the dramatic shift between the confidence of those earlier declarations and the situation now facing the United States and its allies. Trump spoke of victory, dismissed the need for outside help, and repeatedly questioned NATO, yet attention has now turned to whether those same allies should help deal with the consequences in the Strait of Hormuz. Whatever your view of Trump or the conflict itself, that contradiction raises an important question. If the strategy was as successful and carefully planned as the administration claimed, how did we reach a point where NATO's help is suddenly so important? Now I want to hear what you think. Should Britain and other NATO members step in? Or should they stay out of a conflict they didn't start? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy political discussions like this, make sure you like the video, subscribe to UK Debate Breakdown, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.